Welcome. In this tutorial we'll be looking at creating a very simple maze game. I'll be using the Gamemaker Studio for this, but it will work perfectly fine in Gamemaker 7 or Gamemaker 8. First thing we need to do is name our project. It's going to give it a sensible name like maze, and then choose create. Okay, so we've got our blank program. First thing we need to do is create the sprites for our game. So if we right click on sprites, choose the option create sprite. With our sprite naming convention we will use SPR at the beginning. And the first sprite we're going to have is the player. So SPR player. Then we choose load sprite and we browse to the location of our resources, in this case maze resource, and I'm going to select player. You need to make sure the remove background option is ticked. If not, you'll see it adds a horrible block around the character, so pop the tick back in there and everything's fine. And click on open and OK. Now we're going to create our wall sprite, so SPR wall, load sprite and choose wall. This time we need to make sure that tick is removed. As you can see, the image looks a lot crisper and clearer. Click on open and OK. Next sprite we're going to create is the flag. This is going to be the main goal, and again make sure the tick is back in remove background. And another sprite, SPR door. The door is going to be used to block the flag. Now we need to create something to collect in our game, so SPR fruit, load sprite, fruit, open, OK. So we have a player, wall, flag, door, fruit. The next sprite will be our baddie, so SPR baddie. We'll load the sprite and choose baddie and open and OK. Now we have some sprites to play with. We're going to create objects from all of those sprites. So the first one, we come down to object, right click, create object, and the first one is OBJ player. And from the sprite drop down list we select SPR player and click on OK. And now we repeat for the other objects. OBJ wall, select wall. You want to tick solid for the wall, so we want our player to stop when he hits into it. And then we continue down our list. OBJ flag, OBJ door. Don't forget to add the sprite. OBJ fruit. And finally OBJ baddie. And OK. So we've got our sprites and now we've got our objects. They still won't be doing much at the moment, but what we'll do is we'll create our room. We're going to create two rooms. The first one, right click on rooms, create room. Underneath settings we're going to call it RM start and then just OK, or the little tick. And then we're going to create a new room, and under settings RM level 1. And it's the level 1 room we're going to be editing. So come back to your objects. And what you need to do is just place your objects into your room. If you hold down the Shift key and drag, you'll be able to do a line individually clicking. Just put one at a time. If you make a mistake, you just right click and delete, or hold the Shift key down and right click, and it will remove many options. So spend a few minutes creating yourself a little maze. Doesn't have to be perfect. Try not to make it too difficult as well, as it's level 1. You want it fairly straightforward for level 1. And I'm going to leave a little area for a flag and the other objects. So I can see here will be my end goal. So if I now choose object flag, I'm going to tuck that up in the corner, and my object door I'm going to place just before it, so it stops me from reaching it. It's going to make a few tweaks to the room, so I'm going to remove that block there, and I'm also going to remove this block here, just to give me a sort of exit and hide away when my enemies are coming. The next thing I'm going to place on my screen is my player. Now I'm going to position the fruit. So these are on the room to collect, so we have a purpose to completing the room. Once we've collected all the fruits, the door will disappear and we'll be able to reach our goal. So I'm just going to fill the room in. Make sure you don't put any fruits underneath the door or underneath the flag or any walls. It'll make it very difficult to collect and you won't be able to complete your game. If you find that once you set the room to destroy the door, once you collect all the fruits, it doesn't disappear, it's probably because there's a piece of fruit hidden somewhere, so you might have to relay the room out. Okay, all of my fruits in. Now it's time for a couple of baddies. So I'm going to position one here. Sorry, don't know why it wasn't working then. Position one here, and one here. Spend a little bit of time creating your room. Like I say, don't make it too complicated as it's only level 1. Once you're happy and you're done, just click on the little tick on return back. What we're going to do is create one more object. So choose the option create object. This one's going to be obj start. This is going to be our start controller for the room start. We're going to add an event, keyboard and space. And what we want it to do is when we press the space bar, we want it to go to the next room, or level 1 in this case. So we come down to the main 1 tab and choose the option next room. And that's done. There are other things you probably want it to do at that point, like set lives and set score to 0, so we might as well add those in. So if you find the score tab, got the option here, set score and to 0, that's fine. Also set lives to 3 and OK. Make sure it's in this order. What will happen now is we'll put it into the room, and when we press the space bar we'll move on to the next screen. You can create yourself a splash screen for your start room. You can create it in something like Paint and have instructions on it so that when people press the space bar they'll be taken to the next page and they know what to press. So that's created. I'm going to click on OK, go to my room start, choose object start and just position it in the room somewhere. Doesn't really matter where. Once you're done with that, we can then test that the game works. So just press F5 on your computer or click the play button and hopefully at that point it will load. You'll spot a grey screen to start off with because we haven't created those graphics for the splash page, but if you press space it should work and take you to the next screen. And there we have our game. Nothing's actually working at this moment in time because we need to put some controls in, and the objects are spinning around mentally as it stands, and none of the controls will work. But at least we can see that we can progress from screen 1 to screen 2, and screen 2 contains a basic layout of our maze. Let's stop that one and go back to our main game. What we need to do now is go into our object player and start adding a few bits and pieces for him. So the first thing we need to do is add an event, keyboard, and left. And we're going to move our character to the left at a speed of 4. Just going to resize that slightly. If you didn't quite see, the move control there was from the move tab at the top of the screen. We're also going to drag in this change sprite. And the change sprite will be SPR player, but it's going to be sub-image free, speed 0. So it will change the sub-image to the one facing to the left, and we'll change that for each one. We can copy and paste these two controls, ready for when we add our next event, which is keyboard right. We paste them back in and just make the appropriate changes. So the sub-image this time is 2. The move direction becomes right, and that's done. And then we do the same event again, add event, keyboard up, paste those two controls in. The sprite sub-image becomes 1, and the move direction needs to be changed to up. And one more down, let's paste that one in. This time sub-image 0, speed 0, that's fine. Start moving in direction. There we go, it's come back up. Start moving in direction down. The sprites you'll have to work out depending on which image you've got. The sub-image may be in a different order depending on which sprite you're using. But have a flick through, you'll find out if you've got it wrong. If we add another keyboard event, this time the no key option, what we want it to do when no key is pressed is the character to stop. So you want a middle section there, speed of 0, OK. Be nice as well if it's snapped to a grid size of 32 by 32. This will make it a lot easier for us as we're trying to line up with the corners. And we're OK on that. So if you relaunch your game, hopefully now you'll see that you're able to move and the character's facing the correct direction. Any issues with it facing the correct direction just mean you need to change the sub-image. So that's working to a fashion. Obviously we're not touching any of the fruits. We can walk through baddies, we can walk through walls and go floating off anywhere we like. But you see, as I'm moving, if I let go, you'll see this little jump into position. That's just snapping it to the next 32 by 32 grid. All sprites used in this particular game are 32 by 32. So if you're downloading any from the internet to use yourself, make sure you have the same sizes. Okay, so we need to put a few extra bits in to make it a little bit more responsive. The first thing we'll put in is an add event create, and we just want to change the sprites to SPR player with a speed of 0 and a sub-image of 0. That will stop him spinning as we first launch the game. It would also be very useful at this point to add a collision event, and that will be a collision with the wall. And when it hits the wall, we just want it to stop. So now hopefully when we press play, it won't be spinning at the beginning of the game, and when we try and walk through a wall we won't be able to. Much smoother. Okay, the next thing we need to add is another collision event, this time with the object door, and we want the same event again, so let's just drag in and choose the option stop. This will stop us moving through the door. We'll add another collision event, this time with the object fruit. Now for the object fruit, when we collect it, we would like the score, so from the score tab, set score, to go up by a certain number. I'm just going to add mine by 1, totally up to you what you put in there. Make sure you tick relative so it goes up by 1 and not just reads 1 every time you collect a piece of fruit. Click on OK. We also want from the main 1 the option to destroy instance. Now be careful on this one. If you leave it set to self, it's going to destroy the object player. So we want to choose other so it destroys the piece of fruit. And click on OK. So that's just going to create a score system for us. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is add a collision to our baddie. When it hits the baddie, we want it to deduct a life. So under score, set lives, -1, and again make sure you tick relative and OK. We'll also want it to restart the room. So under main 1, choose the option restart room. Okay, one more collision event. Add event collision flag, and we want the option to go to the next room should it exist if we collect the flag, so the next level. If it doesn't, we want to show a high score and go back to the start screen. So we'll start off under control, under main 1, sorry, and we're going to do a check next. So that just checks if next room exists. Under control, we'll just tidy that up a little bit with a start and end block. So we'll just tidy it up a little bit with a start and end of block, followed by an else and another start and end of block. If we come up to main 1, if the next room exists, we want to go to the next room, so we drag that in between the first 2 blocks. If it doesn't, we want to go to a different room, so we drag in a different room between the second start and end of block, and from the drop down list we choose our start. Okay, the next step is to get our baddie moving, so let's just close down our object player by clicking on OK and double click on our object baddie. Now what we need to do is add an event, create, and we want it to start moving in a direction. I'm going to put it as a speed of 3, so it's slightly slower than my player. Totally up to you what speed you use. Have a play with them, see what happens. And OK. Next thing we need to do is add an event and a step event and step again. What we're going to do here is just test to see which direction it's facing. So we're going to drag on a test variable, and we're going to be moving from left to right, so we just test the H speed, and we're just going to leave it at 0 and choose the operation smaller than. So if it's smaller than, do a task, else do a different task. So we're just setting it up with a start and end of blocks, and else and another start and end of block. What we need to do now is come up to main 1, choose the option change sprite and drag it between the first set of blocks. The sprite will be SPR baddie with a subimage of 0 and a speed of 0. We'll do the same again to the bottom block, SPR baddie, this time subimage 1, speed 0, and OK. Hopefully when we test that, it'll hit the wall, turn around and come back the other way. But before it does, we need to add an event, collision wall, and under the move tab, choose reverse horizontal. OK, so we'll test this. Hopefully he'll respond as we expect. If not, we may just need to tweak the sprite's subimage. Let's have a look. So yeah, it's hitting the wall, turning round, flicking the sprite to the alternative and going back. Fantastic. And I can collect my fruit now, which is even better. And if I crash into the baddie, I die. So excellent, we're at the right part so far. So the next option is to test when all fruit has been eaten and destroy the door so we can get to our flag. So back to Object Player and select the collision with Object Fruits. What we need to do now is add a test instance count again. So from Control, drag in the test instance count. We're going to test the object fruit, and if the number is smaller than 1, we want to destroy the door. So we'll just put a start and end of block in, and from main 1, drag the recycle bin in between the start and end of block, choose object this time, and door. So hopefully you can play through your game, and once you've collected all of your fruits, the door will disappear. Okay, fast forwarded to the end there, and excellent, the door disappears. I can run up and go to the flag, which has taken me back to the start screen as there is no level 2 at the moment. So just stop the game. So that's pretty much it for this first tutorial on making a maze game. We'll come back in part 2 and we'll add a few extra bits. In the meantime, if you create yourself an image in Paint or Photoshop that's around 640 by 480 with a splash screen image and the words press space to start, we'll add that in next time round. Also create a couple of new levels, slightly more challenging difficulty. When we come back, we'll look at adding a few more properties to our game to enhance it slightly. Hopefully this has given you a good basis to start off your maze game. Thank you for watching.